Today, we continue our Silver Screen Slashers triple feature series with Mary Harron's 2000 yuppie nightmare fantasy satire based on the novel by Bret Easton Ellis. The American dream is hemorrhaging, the corporate facade is cracking, and the subtle details of personal business cards has never been so depressingly meaningless as we stomach a gaggle of Gordon Gekko wannabes and lock in a last-minute reservation at Dorsia to meet the soulless but sophisticated Patrick Bateman in American Psycho.
You're listening to How I Met Your Monster, a podcast that explores the introductions to your favorite movie monsters. My name's Zach.
I'm Danny.
And I'm Casey.
And together we dive into the world of horror to find out how filmmakers have introduced us to our favorite monsters time and time again. This is How I Met Your Monster.
Boss, you opened it. We came.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left.
Explorers in further regions of experience. Demons to some, angels to others.
Call you meatloaf! Surprise, Sydney.
Welcome to How I Met Your Monster, the show where we discuss the introductions to your favorite movie monsters. Make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you'd like to support the show, visit shop.fangoria.com/howimetyourmonster for 20% off your entire purchase. Fill up your cart, go to checkout, enter promo code How I Met Your Monster, and you will get 20% off and you will help support our show. Now, today, we are in part 2 of our Silver Screen Slashers triple feature. Casey,
Oh my God.
what Silver Screen Slasher are we covering today?
We're covering Patrick Bateman from American Psycho.
Oh, is he American?
Okay.
Yeah.
Check. Is he a psycho?
Oh, yeah,
Check.
for sure.
Well, the character's American.
Oh, that's true.
The actor who plays
Yeah,
him.
well, we're not talking
is
about
not.
Christian Bale.
No.
Or are we?
No.
I wonder if Christian Bale's kind
Yeah,
of
he does get
psycho.
pretty method.
Yeah.
Yeah, haven't you seen the video of him screaming at the PA?
Oh, I forgot. Was that for like Terminator or something?
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Oh my God. Do you guys know how old he was in this movie?
23.
I think he was 12.
No, not 12. This isn't Empire of the Sun. He was 26.
This is
Twenty-six.
Newsies?
I was
Newsies.
close.
Wait, you guys, we didn't watch Newsies?
Wait,
I was
Danny, did you
close.
watch Newsies?
Yeah. I just assumed that's what you meant.
Yeah, he was 26 years old. Patrick Bateman is supposed to be 27. Man, he's got that butt on him, doesn't he?
Yeah, you know.
That's what I looked like at 26.
I don't want to be rude, but Christian Bale is one of the people in Hollywood that I can't stand looking at, but that ass makes up
He's
for it.
one of the people in Hollywood, at least in this movie, that I could not stop looking at.
Well, I can watch him in this movie, I think, because the character is so awful that, ooh, this is rude. That's rude.
Say it.
He looks just as awful as his character is, so it's good. It's all good.
Oh, man, you really don't like the look. See, I only like the look of Christian Bale in The Machinist. That's the only time I enjoy looking at him.
Disgusting. No, his face. I hate his face.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well,
Isn't it mind-blowing that he went from The Machinist to Batman Begins like not in a very short period
No,
of time?
he's very rich and has a lot of people who can help him.
Yeah. But still, it's pretty impressive.
well, do you think he was rich before Batman?
Yes.
Was he?
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah, it's a good question because he was a young actor, but that's not to say he was like super successful.
Yeah, but what I mean by rich is he had a personal trainer and he had a nutritionalist and he had, he was going to the gym all the time to purposely.
That's fair. Still not the most healthy choice.
Oh, no,
to
it's
go
terrible.
from the weight that he was at, and I mean, let alone not only just to drop the weight for The Machinist, but then to pack on those pounds right after the fact. Because I'm sure a movie like The Machinist was I mean, I'm pulling this information out of my ass, but because it was like this smaller movie, I'm assuming the turnaround was not something like a, big budget Batman movie.
No. Yeah. I mean, he did. So after American Psycho, he was in a lot of just like, it looks like he was in a lot of independent movies. I mean, you get like Newsies and Swing Kids, and he was in Little Women.
Swing Kids.
Yeah.
The hell? What's the Swing Kids?
Velvet Goldmine. Then he did
He
a
was
few
in
others.
Velvet Goldmine?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And then he did American Psycho, and then a few other things like Reign of Fire and Equilibrium. Then he did The Machinist. Reign of Fire was good. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Then he did The Machinist, and then Harsh Times, which, I mean, he was a lead in a lot of these. And so he was
Harsh Times. That's what he called that period between packing on the pounds and Batman and losing it with The Machinist.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a documentary.
And then after Batman, he just, skyrocketed.
He was set for life. I like Christian Bale.
Yeah, I do too.
You hear stories, and obviously, we were talking about the little sound clip that got released, which was, a little,
Yeesh.
uncomfortable to hear. But I think he did apologize for it.
That's fine then.
So I like to leave room for that. We fuck up. Movie sets are crazy.
Yeah, and there's got to be some kind of like something that gets to your head with that level of fame.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And who's to say that wasn't just like, I mean, I can't speak completely to it because I don't remember what was said.
Yeah.
But who's to say that wasn't like a moment where he was like, oh fuck, maybe that moment, and and he got all that backlash, and he was like, oh shit, like who have I become? You know what I mean?
Totally.
Am I becoming Patrick Bateman?
Totally.
Maybe I need to rein this in a little bit. Maybe I need to rein this in with some
I think
fire.
there was a lot of that where there was kind of like some reflection. And like with that whole situation, I mean, I don't remember the last time I even heard the audio, but from what I remember, like I could see like, no, I mean, I should say you should never talk to anyone the way that he spoke to this person, especially if it's a colleague. But we've all been on film sets, and it gets, everything is very tight, and it gets stressful, and you have long hours. And just hearing the story of this guy who supposedly, allegedly kept fucking up the shot because like he was moving or he was making a noise, and he was not supposed to be doing that. So I understand the frustration. That does not, I think, in my opinion, justify the level at which he was so aggressive.
Well, I will say, like, when you're on a shoot and you're doing something and there's people, like, I'm looking at people and I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Zach's like,
what
I do this.
Are
I
you
do
doing?
that for that. Like, I yell at people the way Christian Bale yelled at this guy on every single movie.
Every single day.
Even if Zach's not working, he'll just walk on to set and be like, shut the fuck up.
There's people who it's like, you're doing room tone where you have to get like 30 seconds of just complete silent audio. And people will like shuffle and like do things. It seems to me like they're trying to like, ooh, let me see if I can get away with this and not make a noise. It's like, it's 30
like,
seconds.
How do you
just stop.
Not just do something. Like,
just don't do
it's actually
anything.
Yep. Just don't do it.
Anyways,
yeah.
We're not here to talk about Christian Bale. We're here to talk about Patrick Bateman.
Yes, if that is his name, and we'll get to that.
Oh yes, thank you. That's good call, because there's a lot of identity crises going on in this movie.
Yes.
So Casey, since you decided to choose American Psycho for our Silver Screen Slashers triple feature, could you please be so kind as to read the synopsis for this movie?
I'd love to. A wealthy New York City investment banking executive, Patrick Bateman, hides his alternative psychopathic ego from his coworkers and friends as he delves deeper into his violent, hedonistic fantasies.
Okay. And this was written and directed by Mary Harron, who wrote and directed I Shot Andy Warhol. Did you guys ever see that movie with Lily Tomlin? Not Lily Tomlin, Lily Taylor. Thank you.
Oh, no.
Lily Taylor.
Is it as aggressive as this movie is?
Never saw it.
Oh.
I just know it exists.
You know what I love about this movie?
And I remember hearing about it.
Not only is it a satire, it's a sharp satire.
Shing.
Because of the weapons.
Yes.
Yes.
What did you guys like it?
Yeah, I love this movie.
Yeah, I love this movie too.
There's something about the tone and energy of this movie that I respond to so positively compared to something like our last movie, The House That Jack Built, which again, I liked the movie. I will probably never watch that movie again. Whereas American Psycho, like, oh, it's so enjoyable. And maybe there is that kind of fantasy element.
It's
where
hilarious.
You're kind of more, because it is so dark. Like there are scenes in this that I always forget. Like the dog scene.
Does the dog die.com.
He sure dies. Like it's so sad and so horrible. Yeah. And yet it doesn't, that's not enough to like make me write this off. Like it's still just so fun. It's so quick. It's funny. It's edgy.
It is really quick. And I remember it being like, in my head, it was a lot longer.
It's an hour and 46 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Because usually, like these kind of like dice, because both of the movies that we just watched and the movie that we will watch is very similar. It's kind of like, it's like an emotional, mental dissection of this person's brain and how it works and why it works. So just that is almost exhausting because it's not like it's led necessarily by plot. It's led by character, which feels like it could technically be endless because there's not like a beginning, middle, and an end. I mean, there is, but it's not like character needs to achieve this thing in order to get here. We're just sort of witnessing their sort of turmoil and their emotional journey with themselves. And yet it moves. It's just, Maybe there's something to be said about serial killers. They really bring out the...
Well, they're very similar. Him and Jack are.
Pacing. Yeah, very similar.
Yeah. Very
different as people.
Yes.
But their little struggles that they have are... Like internally, they're the same. Right, externally, they're very different. Yeah. And that's kind of like the whole theme of this movie is like external versus internal and how like the external journey sort of dictates kind of, or at least has some sort of major impact on the internal, like him as a person, like inside and how like it has to break out of this thing because of like the things that he kind of exposes himself to in like society and like the quote unquote norms.
Yeah. I mean, he says at one point when they're in the car, she asks him why he still works there. And he says, because I want to fit in. But at the same time, so it's like everybody that works at that company is exactly the same. They all look the same. They all dress the same. They have the same haircut. The ones that wear glasses all have the same glasses. So it's like they're all exactly the same, but at the same time, he wants to stand out. So that's what the murdery stuff is for me, you know?
Well, it's so funny to me that he wants to like, he always wants to fit in and he tries so hard to fit in, but then he's always like one step behind everybody.
Yeah.
So like with the business card scene, which we'll get to, it's like, he's like, oh, check this out. I'm the fucking man. And then someone else pulls out a business card and he's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But then he also like hates it. Like that almost seems like that's the reason he kills. Well, does he kill because he's jealous? Does he kill because he's so over it all? Does he try, like I made a note to myself because I hadn't thought about this before. And it was kind of like a chicken or the egg kind of situation where it's like, does he kill because he conforms or does he conform in order to kill? You know, like what is it? Is he hiding his true self or is this newer version, this like quote unquote American Psycho version of himself being born because of the world that he is living in? And there is so much contradiction.
Here's a question.
Let's hear it.
Does he even kill at all?
Does he?
Yeah, I would say no.
You would say no? Casey?
I would say, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's how I like it.
I would make a hard stance personally. My interpretation is that he is not actually a killer.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Where do
think
you
it's
stand?
supposed to be ambiguous.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it definitely is supposed to be ambiguous. There was an interview with one of the writers, Guinevere Turner, who actually said that they wrote it specifically to be ambiguous.
I think they leaned a little bit more towards the fantasy part.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's in my opinion, but I can still see the things that would make it either way. Do you know what I mean?
When we get to the end of our discussion in the end of the movie, there's a few things that I found really interesting, which makes me believe, not confirm, but just kind of reinforces my belief that it is fantasy. That's just like my take. And,
Okay.
But I'm sure I could be contradicted. I think that's the beauty of this movie is like everything is contradicted. Like even he contradicts himself. Like I remember seeing this, and maybe this has something to do with the narcissistic behavior that Jack had in the house that Jack built and Patrick has in this movie is, we were just talking about how like he wants to fit in, but he doesn't want to fit in and all that. But yeah, it's that there is a through line it's contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
Because he like, for example, he hates buying into all the bullshit, but then he'll like tell his secretary to wear something sexy. So it's like he's reinforcing these stereotypes of like the, investment banker, New York City, Manhattan douchebag, but then he resents it and then wants to like, he hates anyone else who's like it, but he's sort of like hates himself because he is that. It's so crazy. I love it. But it makes it almost difficult to talk about, but also really, it makes it an interesting discussion because it's hard to put your finger on the why of everything.
I'll put my finger on it.
Oh, same.
Ooh.
Hell yeah.
Is that going to be part of his morning routine? Casey's finger?
In that sexy butt.
Just see it enters. Can I put my finger in that sexy butt?
He's got a nice butt.
He does have a nice butt.
He's a butterface in this movie.
Oh, I think he's, I like it all.
You like his face?
I think he's so handsome.
Oh.
Danny just likes his face when he's got that little mask on that he peels off.
I like it when it's half off.
Yeah.
No, you like it when he wears the eye thing because he looks like a little superhero.
Yeah. It's my superhero kink. Oh, he was a superhero. He was Batman.
He was.
That just hit me. I like how this movie just kind of gets right into it. We're sort of like in the hustle bustle of Patrick Bateman's life, which is just sort of like this kind of endless cycle of bullshittery where it's like him and his douchebag friends who are his douchebag coworkers doing douchebaggy things. And
they're all quite douchebaggy.
they seem so like, yeah, they're so like kind of, I don't know, like it almost like it's almost like the movie's telling you like you have an option. You can either choose to be numb to everything and you just are this person, or you're so aware of it that you recognize how insane it all is and you as a result become insane. Like psychotic. So it's like it's like the lesser of two evils, but which one is the lesser of two evils?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you kill people, that's probably more evil.
Yeah. But again, if you go into this movie under the belief that he actually doesn't kill people and that he's just kind of lashing out, and it's like, it's more just like he's having this like internal mental explosion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. So I did watch this movie twice. And on the second viewing, I kind of went into it thinking like, okay, all of this is not real. It's all in his head. And so you kind of get like a different perspective going in with that, which is pretty cool. I kind of picked up on some stuff during the second watch, but are you guys ready to head to 1980s New York City to meet Patrick Bateman?
Wait, hold on. Do we have a reservation?
At Dorsia?
Yeah. Is it too late?
How are you going to get into Dorsia on a Monday?
Well, let's call Paul Allen. He can always get us in.
Paul Allen's in London. Or he's dead. Nobody knows.
Fuck. Well, we'll just have to, hedge our bets and hope for the best.
Hedge our bets.
Hedge
fund.
Or we just make a call in front of our secretary and pretend that everything's all right, and we never go to Dorcia at all, and we just tell whoever we're with that we are there when we are, in fact, not.
At Barcadia.
Yes.
This
is
Barcadia?
Dorcia. There's a lot of pinball games. Are you sure this is Dorcia?
Danny, quit saying Dorcia.
What am I saying?
Dorcia. Instead of Dorcia.
Sorry, guys. I'm not as cool as you.
Have you ever even been to Dorcia?
Frequent Dorcia. Yeah, exactly.
Well, we know Danny's not getting us in. Jesus Christ. Won't even be able to find the phone number.
Yes, I'm looking for a restaurant called Dorcia.
They start laughing.
All right, so the first time that we are introduced to Patrick Bateman as a monster, I think would be in the club when he kind of like, whether he said that or not, who knows, because like you're seeing it through a mirror. And so like whenever you see things through mirrors in movies, don't trust it. Just don't trust it.
No.
But he comes into that club with the fucking like tickets.
Yeah, drink tickets.
Like drink tickets, and the bartender is so annoyed. She's like, it's a cash bar. And what does he say? He says, you're a fucking ugly bitch and I want to stab you and play in your blood or something.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and he's
like,
just smiling as he does it.
Mm-hmm. So again, like the whole thing with this movie is like ambiguity. And so it's like, I want to know, like, did he say that or not?
Yeah, because you could argue he's in a bar. It's so loud. The bartender's not listening to him. So, like, that's the ideal place and setting to kind of get away with that kind of thing. And I think that is maybe, like, the perfect, like, encapsulation of, like, what the movie is trying to do. And, like you said, like, the ambiguity, like, throwing you off. Like,
yeah, right from the get-go.
Like, we'll shoot it in the mirror because you as the audience are now going to say, well, that's clearly representing his like internal dialogue, but nothing has necessarily like specified that that's definitely the case. So that with the bar setting, I think is like a great way to be like, okay, get ready. Cause this is the movie. It's going to be that for the next like hour and a half. And you're going to be constantly questioning whether or not this is all legit or not. But it does reinforce too, that he is reacting to the world that he's in. Like, so everyone's been in that situation where you're like, you get yelled at by a bartender and you're like,
when you go in with drink tickets. Yeah.
And you're like, God damn. Yeah.
Well, I think but
you're like frustrated at something and they just like, you're like, but this is like that.
Yeah.
Times 1,000.
This also though is a big part of like the fact that everybody is so selfish and nobody's paying attention to the things around them, that like, if he really did say that, she just didn't notice because she's not paying attention to him.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point, Kate. I didn't even think of it like that.
Yeah.
Because
I'm actually a little worried about Danny.
He's
right
so
now.
in his head. Why?
Like, now I'm worried that Danny like secretly wants to stab the barista when they don't give him his
not just the
goat
barista.
milk.
Literally any setting that I'm in, that monologue plays out in real time. But you got to gauge it. If it's a loud room, you scream it. If it's quiet, I'm like, stab you, play in your blood.
Yeah.
They're like, what? Nothing. But Casey, that's a great point though that you made about the fact that like no one's paying attention.
Yeah.
Because we're all kind of so hyper focused on ourselves, and that's literally our character, Patrick Bateman. Right. Who is so internalized.
And it comes up later
and we're just kind of like,
in other situations too. With like the bag. He's putting the body in his car. Or in the car.
Oh, yes.
And he says, oh my gosh, your bag. And it's because they're all just disgusting and obsessed with items that they don't notice that there's a body.
Materialism. Yep.
So,
man, there's just so much to this movie and this character.
There's so much in this. It's wild. It's such a good movie.
Yeah. But Danny, you had mentioned earlier about there's the whole like identity thing going on with this movie. Like, is his name actually Patrick Bateman? Is that who he actually is? When they're in the opening scene there in that restaurant that they don't want to be at, they call it a chicks restaurant. And they said, is Paul Allen's on the other side of the room. When they show the back of Paul Allen, like you don't see his face really. It's not Jared Leto. It's somebody else, which makes it, it's no. Good question though. Good question. But it's like just I think he seems like an older guy. You only see like a sort of a profile of his face a little bit, and then it like turns to the back of his head, but it's definitely not Jared Leto.
Yeah.
And
so is that supposed to be that, because you could argue that Jared Leto in this movie at least has a very similar like look to Patrick Bateman.
They all look the same.
So it's but specifically Paul Allen, and the fact that Patrick Bateman hates him, is he kind of like projecting himself? Like he is basically like the better version of me, so I hate him. So maybe Paul Allen does look like this older guy, but because he sort of doesn't like him as a person, he's now kind of like seeing himself. That might be too big of a read on it, but
I see what you're
like
saying.
it's just his perception of everything is so warped, and so it's all about him technically.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I would say if that were the case, then he would be just projecting onto everybody.
That's true.
He hates them all.
But he seems to specifically hate Paul Allen.
Yeah.
Like even at the end when he admits to the killings, he's like really upset until he mentions Paul's name and he starts like laughing. He's like kind of happy about that one. Because the first time we meet Paul, oh my God, there's so much, because Paul confuses Patrick Bateman, or does he, with this character Marcus Halberstram. Or is Patrick Marcus and Patrick is not? Because there are a few instances where Patrick Bateman is not recognized as Patrick Bateman.
Well, yeah, when he's walking into the office for the first time after we do his whole morning skincare routine, some guy says to him, "Morning, Hamilton, nice tan." Who's Hamilton?
Oh, that could be George Hamilton, who is famously tan.
You know what I also love about this movie is they call everybody by their last names.
Yeah.
I actually can't stand it.
Well, yeah.
But
I feel like that something with identity, like obviously plays a big part in this movie.
Yeah,
but
of course.
It's more about like the question I have is why is it just because he is trying to present himself as someone else that in his, because we're seeing reality through Patrick Bateman's like perception or perspective rather, which is clearly not a reliable perspective because it's warped. It's his quote unquote fantasy. Because there's even a part later when he goes into and I have two reads on this. When he goes in, when he's doing his rampage at the end, I'm jumping all around. I apologize.
That's fine.
But when he goes into this apartment building lobby and you think he's going to kill the,
like the security guard.
Yeah. You think that they're going to say, or I'm sorry, you think that he's going to kill him. And the guy refers to him as Mr. Smith.
Okay.
So either Patrick Bateman's real last name is Mr. Smith, or that's just supposed to be like kind of a joke on the fact that like all these yuppies are the same. The guy doesn't even know who he is, and he's just generalizing him with a very general name.
Precisely.
Which I guess even that could then circle back to what we're talking about right now, which is like, it doesn't matter who you are. Like you could be in the same room with these people. Paul Allen doesn't know who the fuck you are. He doesn't care who you are because he only cares about himself. And that in itself is one of the reasons why Patrick Bateman, as we know him in the movie, is reacting the way he's reacting and hates everyone in the first place. So it's like, it all kind of, maybe I answered my own question actually now. Maybe that's just what I'm going with. That's what I'm going with.
What was your question? There was a question?
Like, what was this, the whole thing with names and identity? Yeah. Like, what was the significance? So I think I answered my own query.
Yeah, everybody is just, they all just want it's like keeping up with the Joneses.
Totally. So identity doesn't even matter because it's all about competition and trying to be better than anyone. It doesn't matter who's coming in second as long as you're in first.
Yeah, even at like when they go out to dinner, and I love that line where he was like, he says, they go out to dinner with his friends, and he's like, I was almost in tears when we arrived at the restaurant because I knew we wouldn't have a good table. But then we did get a good table, and like relief washed over me in like an awesome wave or whatever. But he was like, I was almost in tears because I knew we wouldn't get a good table. But when they're there, and they're talking about like, oh, is Soho becoming too commercialized and this? And the guy's like, I think we've got other problems like Sri Lanka. And then he's talking about all these like he needs to know, he needs to like be the one who knows what's going on in the world. And then Patrick Bateman tries to one up him, and he's like, we need to focus on all these other things. And then he goes and kills a fucking homeless man.
Yeah. Like, that's the thing is like, they're all just kind of like spewing out things that is just like regurgitated from maybe like the news, that mean nothing to them. They just, like you said, like they just want to be in the know so that they can lead a conversation. Patrick even says something about going back to traditional values or something. And it's like, what are you talking about? This is so like empty, and like he's just kind of quoting rather than actually speaking.
Right.
Right. Which is, I love it.
Okay. So when is the next time that we see Patrick Bateman as a monster?
So it comes after, I don't know, like, because the first time we meet him as a monster is in like that sort of in the bar. Like, so it's like, is it in his head? Is it not? And it keeps like kind of elevating and heightening. And you're kind of seeing maybe like the rationale of like why he's being the way that he is. Because I think the last big moment that we get in the sequence is like the business card scene, like the famous business card scene.
Oh, yeah.
But the first official like kill, like where it's like, oh, he's a straight up monster, is with the character Al, who is a homeless man who's living on the street with his dog.
Yeah. What's the scene right before? What triggers him to go kill the homeless man? What's the scene right before that?
I only have the business card scene, and then I have Al.
Okay, yeah. So it must have been the business cards, because he gets all so worked upset. Up. He gets so upset, and then what's his name? Lewis, played by Matt Ross, who is just great.
Love him.
He's like, "What's wrong, Patrick? You seem like upset." And then he goes and
the business cards are just an example of all of them too.
Yeah,
because they all look exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like conformity, but you're conforming to just a mirror image of everything else.
Yeah,
there's nothing interesting. It's so funny. That's the thing about this movie is like you can understand how he's breaking and why he's breaking. It's just the way in which he breaks is what's unhealthy, you know? Because if any of us were like confronted by that, it'd be like, oh, I hate it.
Well,
you know, like not to speak for you guys, but just
it's not so much that he's breaking. Like he says right out of the gate that he's like, I'm not there. He's like, you can shake my hand and you'll feel flesh gripping yours, but I'm just not there. And then there's another scene not too much later where he's like, I don't have an identifiable emotion except greed and disgust.
Because you can get like in this scene, he is taunting Al. Mm-hmm. And it's like you can read it in different ways. Is he doing this deliberately to fuck with him? Or is he having an inner battle? Like, is he saying, I kind of want to help him. I could justify it. If I were to help him, that would be good for me. But it's this other side of him, like the dark side is kind of like taking over. It's like, no, this is the other way you go, which is remove that from the equation rather than like aid this variable in the equation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like one of the quotes he has is he mentioned specifically like my mask of sanity is about to slip.
Yeah.
And like, that's that moment. And he does kill Al's dog in such like a mean, it's not like a quick death. He like stomps him to death.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's basically just telling us like, oh, no, he's gone. That's it. We have now hit a complete turning point. Like it's all downhill from here.
Yeah. Yeah, that was rough. Casey, why didn't you warn us about that?
Yeah, I forgot that was coming.
I don't have to warn you guys.
You don't have to, but it would be nice.
Hurtful.
I don't know, because it doesn't even show the dog.
I mean, you see how cute
sounds.
it is before he kills it.
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't remember that scene, and I was like expecting, I guess not expecting, but I was hoping, I guess. I was like, oh, maybe this is just like, we're seeing that internal struggle. Nope. We see it, but then he acts on it.
So our next monster reveal for Patrick Bateman is the famous Huey Lewis scene with Paul Allen.
Yes. Yeah, maybe like the most iconic, like the scene that everyone is sort of...
yeah, even if you haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, right.
You know this
You know this scene.
Exactly.
To some extent, yeah, totally.
He, after the Christmas party, and Evelyn, played by Reese Witherspoon, has that potbelly pig, which is fucking cute, right? He goes up to Paul Allen and talks about going out to lunch or dinner or something. And fully under the guise of this Marcus Halberstrom guy.
Yeah.
And he takes him to Texarkana.
Yeah.
And just gets him drunk. He just gets him just shit-faced drunk and takes him back to his apartment.
Although right before he takes him, he does tell him, he's like, I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane? Like, he just says it. He's like at this point where he's like, I'm just done. Like, I'm going to just say things as they are.
He's so drunk. He's like,
well, again, is that in his head or did he say it?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Because then Paul Allen immediately follows that up with like, you got a great tan. Like, where do you go get your tan? And he says, oh yeah, Evelyn, she's got a great ass. And she goes out with that loser, Patrick Bateman. He's like,
oh, like that's the thing is like, is Patrick Bateman, is he like the cock of the walk at this place? And it's not actually Christian Bale's character. And like, even Paul Allen hates him, but like our Patrick Bateman, like is like wanting to be him. So he's taking on this identity in this like version of himself that we're being introduced to him as.
Well, so Evelyn in the car, Casey had mentioned the scene earlier where she's like, why do you work here? And he's like, I want to fit in.
Yes.
I think it's that same scene where she's like, your dad owns the company. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, he works there. He doesn't want to work there, but his dad owns the company. And so he's there. The company is called Pierce and Pierce. Aren't those companies usually named after last names?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So
especially if they're going to call it out directly.
Yeah. So wouldn't his last name be Pierce?
Huh.
Well, she said your dad practically owns the company.
Oh, practically owns.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's another thing that's going to trip us up even more, or it's going to just completely answer all the questions that we have.
Ooh, this is a gamble. Okay.
So
I like these odds.
Bret Easton Ellis, who wrote American Psycho, wrote another book, among many others, called The Rules of Attraction.
Shit. I forgot that he wrote that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never read it, but I did watch the movie that came out in 2002. And the main character in that movie is Sean Bateman. And it is canon that he is actually brothers with Patrick Bateman. In the movie, he calls his brother. I don't think they really specify it, but you hear him say, he's on the phone. He's like, Patrick, yada, yada, yada. They did, however,
wait, stop a second. He says Patrick, or in Rules of Attraction, he says.
Sorry, yeah.
Gotcha.
In Rules of Attraction, Sean Bateman's character, played by James Vanderbeek, is on the phone, and you may hear him talk to Patrick.
Okay.
Nothing, I think, even like comes of it. There was, however, a deleted scene in the movie where Casper Van Dien plays Patrick Bateman. So it is like technically confirming the fact that Patrick Bateman is a real person and it is this person.
Okay.
But that doesn't change the fact that like there is a lot of attention kind of put on to the fact that like identity and his name is like up for debate.
Yeah.
And also who knows, like maybe I, again, haven't read either of the books. I haven't read American Psycho. So this could have been something with the adaptation. Like maybe the adaptation kind of delves more into that idea and is kind of like leaving it open for debate. So that's just like something that I can't answer.
Right. Right.
Just worth.
So it
just
did
worth
not
considering.
answer all of our questions.
No, but it is at least something to consider.
Consider it. Considered.
Consider it. Consider it.
Okay. I have something to get into now.
Okay.
Why was Paul Allen back at Patrick Bateman's apartment?
So he could kill him.
But why did Paul Allen agree to go to Patrick Bateman's
Because he's
apartment?
drunk and he's an idiot.
So I have some thoughts on this.
Okay.
This movie clearly is playing with this whole like kind of old school archetypal idea of what it is to be a man, like a straight man in 1980s New York.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things, you know, like, and I'm just speaking like as a gay man, you know, especially in that time, like being gay or being like openly gay, especially, there was like an obvious aversion to it, especially during this era where like the AIDS epidemic was so prevalent.
Right.
So like, if you're going to set a story in that era and you're going to talk about toxic masculinity, but then you don't directly reference, you know, the gay community, the LGBTQ community, then you might anticipate the fact that, or like assume that maybe there are some undertones. But this movie does directly mention the fact that Lewis clearly is gay and he has these feelings for Patrick. But one way you could read it is that it isn't until like these guys are, you know, liquored up that they feel a little bit more comfortable sort of indulging in these other needs that they might otherwise like hide when they're wearing, you know, their suits and, you know, playing their parts, you know, in their day to day as investment bankers. But so, yeah, is it a gay thing? Is it just them just broing out? I don't know, but there's definitely something there to kind of dissect.
Right. Right. So I do have a Reddit post here that I want to read the whole thing later in this episode. But right now, I do want to take a chunk of this and tell you, this is from Reddit user Chokrit. And it was posted. Chokrit, yeah. And it was posted 9 years ago.
Fuck it.
But here's a little excerpt from it that says, Patrick, however, has many homosexual tendencies, including an extensive knowledge of fashion, wines, music, hygiene products, fitness, and restaurants. He is completely unsatisfied with his fiancée and even almost comes on to another man. However, because of his father's expectations of him, he suppresses his urges and expresses them in dress and overly obsessive hygiene and fitness regimens. And there's a whole lot more that we'll go into that I want to go into later with that post because it's very interesting.
Yeah.
But that kind of made me think like, okay, why was Paul Allen over at the house anyways? Like, what was it that he was
there
like?
to fuck.
Yeah, he was probably DTF.
Yeah. He wanted to get, oh no, he gets axed. I was thinking about the drill scene. I was like, he wanted to get drilled, but that's not what happens.
Well, he did have newspaper down and asked if he had a little pooch. He probably wanted to get it doggy style. That's why I put the paper down.
Patrick Bateman doesn't understand what doggy style means. He takes it very literal.
You said you wanted to do it doggy style, so I put
Doggy
down the
style.
paper.
I just assumed that.
Oh.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of repressed homosexuality and repressed urges just in general. I mean, this movie is literally about repressed urges to like the nth degree with Patrick. So like it would make sense that it would want to like kind of play in that playground in other areas that are maybe more grounded or universal.
Yeah.
And not evil.
But he doesn't do it doggy style with Paul Allen. He puts an axe in his face.
Ah, damn it.
Mm-hmm.
Little different. Probably not the way Paul Allen thought that evening was going to go.
No. He wanted to get head. He didn't want to get it in the head. You know?
But yeah, very famous scene. Huey Lewis and the News. Hip to be square. Good song. Great song.
Which I love. This is the start of, because every time basically Patrick is going to like kill someone, he gives this whole like monologue breaking down the music that he's playing. He basically like sets a soundtrack to his kills. And the first one we get is Hip to be Square. And he specifically mentions that the song is about the pleasure of conformity, which I thought was interesting because Patrick is kind of like over being complacent with the status quo and like all the kind of societal expectations. So it's such a perfect way that this song that seems so throwaway would have it would be such a strong metaphor for what this type of movie is trying to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so after he gives this whole spiel about Huey Lewis, we're kind of like witnessing him like putting on his little raincoat, and Paul's too drunk to even like kind of like put together the fact that he's like preparing to kill him. He's got the newspaper down. Yeah, exactly. He's about to go down on him with an axe. But this might be I may be looking way too deep into this movie, but Patrick goes to such great lengths to protect the floor, to protect his suit, but his face is covered in blood. Is that just because it's just easier to clean a face and that's it, and it doesn't stain? Or is that like telling us something about him as a character?
Well, is it because that he's so concerned with his clothes and he doesn't want to get them stained, but like he'll wash his face? But it's just like the materialism. It's like his stuff.
Well, yeah,
do
you remember?
That's what I was wondering.
He had such a hard time at the dry cleaner earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't want to go through that again.
Juice.
Yeah.
The cranberry juice. All right.
Yeah. Because what's our next monster reveal? When he has the threesome?
When he has Christy and Sabrina over. I mean, it is hard to blame Patrick or to not be on his side in this movie. I mean, it's easy to not be, and I'm making a joke, but when there's that scene right before Christy and Sabrina come over, he's working out and he has Texas Chainsaw Massacre playing in the background.
Yeah.
I was like, I get it.
Yeah.
I was like, I see you, bro.
A little foreshadowing.
Oh yeah, totally.
Well, and that's part of why I think this is all in his head. And like I had mentioned, I had read a bit of that Reddit user's explanation, which this plays into later. I think like he's got these things in his head.
Subconscious.
Yeah,
it's like manifesting what he like recent, like what he literally just saw. He's just putting it into his reality or fantasy.
Right, or his fantasy. Yeah.
This scene I remember because I had seen this movie before, but I hadn't seen it in a while, and I thought this was where he attacked them. Okay, but in fact, and I kind of love. I mean, I'm talking from a narrative perspective. I love that doesn't happen because you've been given so much setup. You kind of know what Patrick is capable of. So to see that like restraint, you're starting to understand. Well, no, I guess you're not understanding why.
All serial killers have restraint. Otherwise, they would kill everybody they meet.
I think that made it more disturbing. Almost.
That's a good point.
I was laughing because I was just thinking about him looking at himself in the mirror.
Well, and that's another like, is that part of like repression?
He's turning himself on. Totally.
Yeah. Oh. Like he's looking at his body and
he's not looking at the women while he's having sex. He's looking at himself.
It could also just be that he's a narcissist.
It could be. Yeah.
Because he is that for sure. We know that.
Maybe it's both.
He could be a gay narcissist.
Danny?
Yeah. A gay-cissist.
A
narcissist.
A homo. A narcissist.
It could be a narcissist. It could be a narcissist with a silent G at the beginning. Like gnarly.
A gay narcissist. A narcissist. Yeah,
narcissist. It's gnarly. It's gay. And it's fucking narcissistic.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Sounds like a great way to live, honestly.
Speaking of his body, he says he can do 1,000 crunches.
It's because he's watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre while he's doing them.
And Christian Bale did say that he did do the Patrick Bateman workout in preparation for the movie because he wanted to get into character.
For real?
Mm-hmm.
He did 1,000 crunches?
That's crazy.
Oh my God.
I mean, I believe it though. I mean, he's...
I'm sure I've done 1,000 crunches in my life, guys.
In your lifetime, not every morning.
He literally just looks like he's a sculpture.
Yeah.
That's crazy. How are they eating so much and yet he's still able to look that way?
Yeah,
that's a big part of building muscle. You have to eat a lot when you build muscle.
I guess I'm just jealous. Can I just be jealous? Yeah, we don't get a kill in this scene, but we do see kind of he likes having this power of them. He's kind of controlling when they leave, what they do, how they fuck, all of that. And then when they do leave, she's got a bloody nose and it's pretty awful.
Scratches on her back and
I didn't even notice that.
Whatever he uses in that drawer, he had like a hanger in his hand, like a metal hanger.
Oh, God.
Mommy dearest.
Yeah.
Jesus.
No more wire hangers. But yeah, he does something to him. And then is our next reveal kind of when he gets Christy back?
Yeah, because we kind of have a fake out. We have the one where he asks his secretary, Jean,
to go on a date.
Chloe Sevigny out. Yeah. Yep. And that's with the famous nail gun scene when he puts it to her head and then doesn't kill her. So it's not really a monster intro, but I just thought it would be, worth kind of mentioning.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He gets in the closet and he sees like the chainsaw and like tape and everything. And
yes,
he gets the tape out. She's like, "What's that, Patrick?" He's like, "It's tape for taping something."
Oh, and there is in between these two monster intros, we do have an Ed Gein reference and a Ted Bundy reference. Mm-hmm. So.
What was the Ted Bundy reference? I remember the Ed Gein one.
I literally just wrote Ted Bundy reference, and because Patrick must mention it, and Jean says, "Who's Ted Bundy?" And it's just sort of like, I think she's just not. It's this lack of awareness of like the danger that she's in.
Yeah.
I did, however, in this scene, I'm glad we're talking about it now because I wrote in all caps Zach with an exclamation mark. And I followed it up with, she almost put the spoon on the coffee table. And Patrick calls her out for it.
Monster. Real monster.
That's okay. I think that's worse than the apple.
I agree.
You think putting the used spoon on the table is worse than setting the apple on the table?
Yeah, but also he was talking about Ted Bundy's dog.
Oh. Okay.
Thank you.
You know who does get introduced to us before this happens, and it's not really part of a monster reveal, but Detective Kimball.
Oh, yeah. Willem Dafoe.
Who is so great in this movie. I just love him. And like, I saw that he recently got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And that was just I saw like the video and he was just like so happy. And like, Danny, I know you've interviewed him and you said he was just like the sweetest guy.
It's funny.
Very sweet.
He's like the cutest, he's the cutest, scariest person that's ever existed.
Yeah. In person, very polite, very which I love. Cause you think about like how many, journalists have to go and like, I'm sure that, there's an intimidation factor to it.
Yeah.
And he just seems like just such like a class act, like the kind of guy who wants to make sure you feel comfortable before he feels comfortable.
Awesome.
And that's that vibe he gives off, which is really nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But I had read somewhere before, this was years ago that I read this, that he did multiple takes during this movie, during shooting. In one take, he would play it like Patrick Bateman, like he knew Patrick Bateman like killed all these people. And then he would do another take where he like kind of played it where he didn't know what was going on and was kind of just like everything was up in the air. And then they edited those different takes together. And so his demeanor throughout the interviews is kind of just like up and down, up and down. So you kind of don't know really what's going on.
Where does he stand? Is he playing it? Yeah. Cause then you can almost think, is he being coy to throw Patrick off, or is he actually like unsure? Yeah. That's cool. I like that.
And like when he pulls out the CD of Huey Lewis and the News.
Yes.
Like, what is that about?
Do you not know?
No, tell me.
Please tell us.
Psychopaths have delayed reactions to things, and he was shining the light in his eyes.
So is he aware? So is the song itself supposed to be like symbolic of Patrick being a killer?
I think that the fact that it's a Huey Lewis CD is just a coincidence.
Gotcha. But it was the same CD. Oh, yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. So you think he was shining it to see if he
yeah, because he shines the light right.
Oh, I thought you meant like
shining a light on it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm gonna mention this, and if he doesn't respond right away, not literally shine the light with the CD. Also, shine a light. What is this? Rolling Stones?
Oh, yeah.
That shine a light?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, okay. Oh, that's so funny. I literally thought you were being like, not literal. Okay, so yeah, you mentioned that we're at the yet another introduction, someone being introduced to Patrick as a monster, and it's the Christy and Elizabeth scene.
Yeah. So, well, just the Christy scene. Who's Elizabeth?
Because Elizabeth is the friend that he invites over because he has the threesome.
Right.
But he does first meet with Christy when he pulls up the limo, and that's when you kind of really confirm that not only was he abusive toward Christy and Sabrina, but it was to the point that she had to go to the hospital and was even basically directed to maybe sue Patrick for what he did to her. Like it was that bad.
So, so the next monster reveal is Christy and Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Can you sue someone like that when you're a prostitute, which is illegal?
Depends
there
what
has
state
to
you're
be
in.
Some sort of protection involved
New York City
for
no,
sex work.
It's still assault.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
regardless.
if you're yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The cops will probably care less about it.
Yeah.
They probably won't really look into it.
Yeah.
But technically it's
which is a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough
sex work
about,
is work.
The details, but yeah, exactly.
Yep. But okay, yeah, so he's in Paul Allen's apartment. He's using it, and he's got Elizabeth over there who is a friend, and he is saying that Christy is his cousin.
Yes.
But he's drugged them both. He's drugged the bottle of wine. And he wants them to get it on. And she's like, Elizabeth doesn't say anything about Christy being his cousin, which I was waiting for her to say something like, hey, that's your cousin. And she's just like, no, I'm not into girls.
Look at all the stuff that they do. Would it surprise?
Yeah. What do you mean?
I mean, they're gross. Why does it matter if they're inbred?
Who's gross?
All of these yuppie scum.
Oh, yeah.
You don't think that they're inbred?
Yeah.
That's how they get there.
Yeah, exactly. Keeping it in the family.
Yeah. And here we get another famous scene with him naked running down the hallway with a chainsaw, chasing Christy.
And I was so conflicted because I'm like, I'm so turned on right now. I kind of want someone to chase me naked with a chainsaw, but no, Daniel, no, Daniel, you don't want that.
Covered in blood. So did he eat Elizabeth?
So
he was like going down on her,
and
with
then like a scalpel or something earlier. He opens a drawer and pulls something out.
No, he doesn't. Right? Wasn't that earlier? That was earlier.
That's earlier when he pulls out the hanger. I was under the assumption that he just bit her clit.
Maybe I'm mixing it up. I thought he was stabbing her.
You say. I'm the one with the clit
there.
here.
I know, but oh my God.
I thought he was like puncturing her with it instead of
He said,
like with a weapon.
I can taste your cunt.
Yeah. That's one of the most...
Oh, no, that's not what he says. He said, I can smell your cunt. I can smell your cunt. Well, he was tasting it, so I guess I wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
Thank you, Clarice Starling, for...
You go from smelling
Dr.
to tasting.
Lecter.
Dr. Lecter. Dr. Lecter.
Dr. Lecter.
Dr. Lecter.
Yeah, no, I definitely think they were clearly, you would assume, couldn't show what he was doing to her and keep the R rating.
Right.
And yet by not showing it, your imagination kind of takes over. And I think it's probably worse than what we would have seen, because it could be. It's like, was he...
Yeah.
Did he have a weapon? Was it his mouth? You know, like, was that the weapon?
His tongue. Weapons of mass destruction. I'm losing my mind.
But yeah, that's when Chrissy's basically like, oh, he's not just abusive, he's
murderous.
Yeah, he's
Murderous. So she takes off, and it's kind of like what we were talking about last episode, the house that Jack built. It's like, don't yell help, yell fire.
Totally.
But she doesn't. And maybe she doesn't because maybe this is all in Patrick's head. Who knows? Because how do you do what he did by dropping the chainsaw?
Exactly.
So many flights down the stairs. That's like I would love to have a fucking, not a physicist. Who's fucking physics? They do physics. They do
That's a
equations.
Physicist, dear.
A physicist. Okay.
You want Sir Isaac Newton to throw an apple down a staircase.
Exactly. If only Sir Isaac Newton could have been back.
This was originally about Isaac Newton, but then they were like, what if Patrick Bateman?
I want a physicist to figure out the odds of that being successful.
I'm going to wager a guess that it's impossible. I feel like this is the part of the movie where it's like, it's in his head. Because she is screaming, but it's a great point that like they're not going to respond because it's that class. Casey, what do you call that thing? Is it syndrome or
what?
Where no one will respond or no one helps?
Oh, the bystander. The bystander effect.
Yes, thank you. Bystander effect. And then it was like the Genovese or something like
that.
The
Genovese syndrome, yeah. But I think so. I know you're talking about it being in his head, but in this movie, so nobody hears them because nobody cares because they're all just too concerned with their own lives.
Yeah. Because also, Zach, you're talking about the chainsaw. It still technically could happen. Like it's still like.
Well, that's why we need the physicist.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not so far-fetched. It's not like he pulled out a lightsaber and killed her. It's still like within a realm of reality. And you could argue even though I do personally take a hard stance that it is all in his head.
So especially just because right before that, before she runs down the hallway, she goes through the apartment and she sees like bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
And like shit written on the walls and blood and all this stuff. And that's where it's kind of like, okay, where did all these things come from?
It becomes like a Halloween funhouse of like, someone would have smelled it. Someone would have noticed it. How big is his apartment? Where are these rooms? Who are these people? How is he? Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. So after Christy gets the magical chainsaw down the flight of stairs, what's next?
Hell of a way to go.
And
then it's basically
his breakdown.
Yeah. The next time we really see Patrick as a monster is like him in like full force. It's his big rampage scene. It's basically the climax of the movie.
Yeah. Where he's at the ATM and it says, "Feed me a stray cat."
Yeah. And all of his little
which could happen.
The lack of inhibition. Yeah. That's the reality.
And what a cute little kitty.
Yeah.
I know. But it's like in those nature documentaries where like you see an animal that's really cute, but then like the lion needs to eat and just because the lion isn't as cute. So in this case, the cat is cute, but the ATM needs to eat.
It needs
it's
to.
just part of nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that lady who tried to stop him from feeding a stray cat to the ATM apparently needed to get shot.
Yeah. She's like, that's why documentarians don't, interfere with nature.
Right.
That's what happens.
Well, okay. So, and then here's another thing. Like, why did he use a gun? Like, he's never used a gun before. Like, where did that come from?
Exactly. Casey, has there ever been, to your knowledge, a serial killer who so drastically changes their MO? Okay.
Richard Ramirez. He didn't have an MO. He did all kinds of shit, and he killed all kinds of people. But most of them do stick to the same thing, But
that does seem very much like you want to just get it done rather than it being like this process.
Yeah.
Is that common too?
What, guns?
Yeah.
I feel like strangulation.
Like for a serial killer.
Strangulation is usually, I think, the most popular. That I don't know that for sure. That's just what I would.
Yeah.
Thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Richard Ramirez did everything.
Okay.
That's why I feel like if you are on the fence, like this is where it starts to feel like he's living in his own head because it's just him. He can no longer control his. It almost doesn't even read as like an impulse to kill. It's more just like his frustration with the world. Okay. Like everything he's confronting, he's like, I can't even handle it anymore. Like I need to get rid of this.
Yeah. Well, like he goes.
So
like
that was how I read that.
The cops come after him, and he like shoots at him and blows up their car.
Yeah, he's just he's completely successful. Everything works to his favor. There's nothing standing in his way, and when they do, it's like he just. It is
and like when he goes into the building, he goes into his building and shoots the security guard and then goes out the door and shoots and he spins around the revolving door to come back and shoot the custodian and then goes back out. But then he goes into his building, the Pierce building, which is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Everything's the same. That's the point.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh, and then that is when you're right. He goes in and that's when he calls his lawyer and he basically just confesses he can't keep it in anymore. Yeah, he's killed up to 40 people. He ate some of their brains.
Yeah.
And it's funny, he's like disgusted in himself too, which is interesting.
Uh-huh. And he says he'll meet his lawyer at Harry's like the next morning or in a few mornings, whatever. So when he goes there, he sees his lawyer and his lawyer's like, oh my God, this is another identity thing where this lawyer's like, that was so funny. Like, I can't believe you do that. But like Patrick Bateman, like he's such a dork. He wouldn't do that.
Yes.
So who does the lawyer think he is?
Well, maybe that's his internal dialogue too.
Yeah. That's the fucking fucked up thing is like, is it Patrick who isn't Patrick?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm going to read this. This is a very long Reddit post, but I'm going to read this. Okay. This is by Chocolate from 9 years ago.
Iconic Chocolate. If only he knew 9 years ago that he would be this famous.
Classic Chocolate.
That we would be putting on such a pedestal right now.
So bear with me as I read through this.
Wait a minute. Chocolate. That's an anagram of Patrick Bateman.
It is not that. Okay. Okay. So here we go. Bear with me. After watching this movie several times, I've concluded that Patrick is not actually a serial killer, but simply believes himself to be. Patrick's father is the head of his firm and is such a wealthy businessman, which means that his father was very strict. The archetype of businessman father means he had many expectations for Patrick. His actions, demeanor, and overall personality, expecting him to be a man's man and exhibit power and masculinity all around, ultimately wanting Patrick to take over the firm one day. Patrick, however, has many homos... Okay, I read this part earlier.
He has many homos. Same, bro. I got many homos.
Patrick, however, has many homosexual tendencies, including an extensive knowledge of fashion, wines, music, hygiene products, fitness, and restaurants. He is completely unsatisfied with his fiancée and even almost comes on to another man. However, because of his father's expectations of him, he suppresses his urges and expresses them in his dress and overly obsessive hygiene and fitness regimens. This conflict of interest eats away at Patrick his whole life, and he develops some kind of mental disorder, be it schizophrenia, psychosis, or some other kind of separation from reality mental disease. Patrick describes his days as dull and boring, but his nights are, quote, fueled with bloodlust. However, when does Patrick have time for sleep in all of this? All of his supposed victims are killed at night, and they are people who he is barely close with, if at all. The homeless man, the strippers and prostitutes, even Paul Allen isn't that close to Patrick, save for reputation. However, several attempted murders occurred, his secretary Jean and Louis Carruthers. These were people close to him, not nobodies, and his conscience caused him to fail these murders. All of the murders depicted in the film, I propose, occurred in Patrick's mind while he was asleep each night, each murder representing one of his father's desires for him. 1. The homeless man, no respect for the poor, survival of the fittest. 2. The prostitutes, be a confident, straight man, patriarchal, slightly misogynistic, dominant in the bedroom. 3.
Slightly misogynistic.
You're right. 3. Paul
It was
Allen.
10 years ago.
That, Casey.
3. Paul Allen, conquer your competition in the business world. And 4. The final rampage, a melange or a mix of the above, a culmination of mental distress and anxiety. Okay, I'm not done with this post, you guys. There's more.
A few more pages.
These people are all nobodies to Patrick. Additionally, they scale up in ridiculousness, culminating in the final homicidal rampage, which seems disturbingly dreamlike. He outwits several police cars, reads "Feed me a stray cat" off an ATM, calls his lawyer to confess to the killings, and then his lawyer completely disregards them because of their ridiculousness. That he couldn't murder those close to him and that he sleep-called his lawyer to confess to his murders demonstrates that Patrick couldn't hurt a fly. His hallucinations are so vivid, however, that he fails to separate dream from reality, and details from reality simply feed his dreams. I.e., mentioning Paul Allen to the girls, the detective looking for Paul Allen, etc. The clincher, however, is that nobody close to him has any recollection of any of his murders, and even have evidence against the fact that he murdered people. His lawyer had had lunch with Paul Allen, and the detective had alibis for several people that they had had dinner with Patrick on the night of the murder. Jean doesn't believe Patrick could actually hurt anyone. In reality, nobody really cares about Patrick or notices him, although because he is the narrator, it seems as though they should. Paul Allen's apartment is also completely cleared of all Patrick's murders and is actually up for sale. To think that they cleaned the entire place and didn't call the police when they found blood on the walls and bodies in the closet seems hard to believe. This is the final paragraph.
It's actually mind-blowing also. I love this. It's making me feel really stupid.
Yeah, me too.
In reality,
I'm like,
Paul Allen really did disappear to London. Patrick likely overheard that he had at some point, and that became another detail for his dream sequence in which he framed that Paul had gone to London. The detective was hired by his wife because he truly did leave town without telling her. For what reason is unclear, possibly business, possibly he was ditching his wife. Because Patrick doesn't know dream from reality, he thinks the detective actually suspects him, but he's just a private investigator and not actually a cop. The detective figures out that Paul went to London, and in that time, Paul Allen sold his apartment. Some time passes, Paul Allen has lunch with Patrick's lawyer, and the film ends. Wow, that was a long post, Chokrit. But thank you so much
Zach,
for that.
I think you were muted. Can you repeat that?
Fuck you. And now I had that pulled up in front of me and I couldn't see you guys, and now I'm seeing you guys for the first time, which seems like decades. You simply were not there.
We're sleeping. No, I actually love that. Chokrit brought up some pretty fascinating points.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty spot on, and it was kind of like, oh, like that makes all the sense.
Yep. Well, I still think is in his head, because I would like to jump to the final monster intro.
Ooh.
And this is when Jean, his secretary,
Oh.
finds his calendar or his
Right. His
what do you
planner
call it?
or whatever.
Planner, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's filled with all of his drawings that kind of allude to a killer, but don't necessarily confirm it because they're just drawings. And what I really thought was fascinating about this was the fact that he talks a lot. The whole movie is all about sort of like how you present yourself to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so even though he may not be a killer, his truth is revealed. You know, the veil of conformity is lifted. And in a weird way, like that's kind of what he was going for, because he was trying to break away from conformity.
Mm-hmm.
But there are repercussions to this and like the way that people see you and everything. But I did think it was interesting, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the fact that the one person who sees this is maybe the one person who can't afford to expose him. You know, it's someone who is technically in this world of status is beneath him. It's someone who kind of works for him.
Mm-hmm.
So there is this convenience factor of like, he is exposed, but maybe that's not going to mean anything. Like she'll never tell anyone. So yeah, I just thought that was, interesting.
That's almost like, that was almost like you talking, I think last episode about like feeling like claustrophobic, like in your head.
Totally.
Like you can't say anything because
you physically can technically, but you can't.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter.
Right. Oh, poor Jean.
I know. Poor Jean. She's like the most decent person in this movie.
Yeah. She's like, I always get involved with unavailable men.
It's a little bit worse than that this time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's kind of American Psycho. That's Patrick Bateman in a overnight bag. Lewis. Do you guys want to talk about our favorite reveals in American Psycho?
What's going on here?
I don't see anything anywhere. That's how they get you. They're under the goddamn ground.
Okay, so we have with the bar scene where he may or may not say something lewd to the bartender. Mm-hmm. Lewd, is that right?
Yeah.
Then we've got
Al.
Okay. Then we've got Paul Allen is next. And then we've got
Christy and Sabrina.
First Christy and Sabrina. And then we've got
Christy and Elizabeth.
And then you've got the final rampage, right? And then you've got
and then Jean.
Jean looking at the planner, the notebook.
Yeah. Hey, Paul.
Is that a raincoat? Yes, it is.
It's so ingrained in you that like that's the reveal. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But is it your favorite, or is it just because like, you know what I'm trying to say?
It's so good. It really
is
it's just
really
like
good.
him, his monologue about Huey Lewis. There's a reason why it works so well and people talk about it still. It's so iconic.
Okay, you sold me.
It's funny.
You sold me.
It's oddly satisfying, but really
am I just
dark.
conforming to the popular opinion?
Oh my God. Well, what did he say about that? Huey Lewis said it's a song about the pleasure of conformity. What is it? It's hip to be square. It's hip to be square. It's the power of love.
Different song.
It's the power of love.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll conform. Fuck it. We're here. We're doing this.
I'm
Can we all
conforming
just
too.
conform? Yeah,
My
me
favorite
too.
is Paul Allen.
We're here.
Yep.
We're queer. Get used to it.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I agree. Paul getting head, getting it to the head.
Paul Allen getting head is my favorite reveal.
Yeah, me too. He really takes it like a champ.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, okay, wow, reading so into this, I'm being like annoying, but there is this whole thing about work life and climbing up the ladder and Patrick Bateman wanting to be better than Paul Allen, and Paul Allen kind of representing this. And the idea of being axed is to be fired. So the fact that Patrick Bateman kind of takes control of, he is the one who gets to axe Paul Allen. I'm wondering if there was something. See, even if
I thought
no
you were going to go a different.
I
thought you were going to go a different route where it's like climbing the corporate ladder. You'll do whatever you have to do, and Paul Allen is ahead of him, so he was going to go. He was going to make Patrick give him head at his apartment.
That was my alternate take.
Zach, I thought you were going to say something dumb, like he was just going to kill him to get in the head in the blah blah blah. Oh my gosh,
he's getting ahead in the
So
workplace.
you thought I was going to say something dumb, so you're surprised that I said something funny.
No, I'm happy.
So yeah, so we're all on the same page. Unanimous vote. Paul Allen's death scene is the best monster intro reveal for Patrick Bateman in this movie. Right.
Agreed. Perfect. All right. Well, now it's time for a segment that we like to call The Real Monster.
Run, run, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. You're a monster. I'm not the monster here. You are. You and the rest of that fairy tale trash poisoning my perfect world. Now tell me, where are the others? Eat me!
My real monster for this movie is a monster for the ages. It is a monster that we cover all the time. It is our most covered monster, and that is capitalism and consumerism.
How did I miss that one?
How did you miss that one?
Weird.
I don't know. Little on the nose, huh?
Yeah. Okay. I like it. Capitalism. Ironically, capitalism is like wins so much on our podcast, despite the fact that
I mean, yes, it wins in life. I mean, it's the realist of the real monsters.
Capitalism, you guys.
It's the realist of the real monsters, and it's winning every day here.
Love monsters. So what does that say about us?
Okay, I have two real monsters for American Psycho. I've got number one, Lewis's haircut. Come on, buddy.
You don't love it?
Like,
it's so funny.
What is going on there?
Yeah, what is going on?
It's so weird.
It is. It is memorable.
He's the only one that doesn't have the same haircut as everybody else.
That's true. I don't know why it is what it is. And my second real monster is just like 80s restaurant decor.
Oh, it's terrible.
Like they were calling that restaurant at the beginning like a chick's restaurant, which whatever, being sexist pricks, but it was all like pink and just like not that pink is ugly, but just the restaurant was ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Just soulless, just like everyone else in this movie.
Soulless. Yeah.
It's a great example of like people putting so much effort into something and spending so much money only to end up with something that has no artistic value in any way whatsoever.
Right.
Those are good
Danny,
choices.
what do you got?
I have one. Mine is the real monster is QR codes.
Interesting. QR codes that did not exist in the 1980s.
No. As much as annoying as the business card scene is in this movie, and as much as it's supposed to represent like this like idea of conformity, I prefer a unique, personalized, physical, handheld business card to what we now use these days, which is the QR code. It is convenient, but to be honest, I would much rather someone hand me a card than being like, here's my QR code, and then I have to pull my phone out, do this whole business, and then like go to their website. Like, no. Ugh, stupid.
Ew.
I want to stumble upon your business card and go, oh yeah, that guy.
Right. When are you ever going to stumble upon their website on their phone? You're going to close the browser tab.
Exactly.
You're going to have like 50 browser tabs open and you're going to go through and just close them all.
Yep.
And another thing, Danny, to add on to that, I hate it when you scan the QR code and then if you close it, you can't get back to it.
Oh,
Where does it go? Where does it go?
Oh.
I don't know where it goes.
It goes to the same heaven or hell or afterlife that the victims in this movie goes, because if you believe that it is a fantasy, it doesn't exist, so they go to nowhere and they are nothing. They're useless.
They're useless.
Also,
nix
what
the
fuck
QR
does
codes.
QR stand for?
Quick reading.
I was going to say useless, but there's no Quite recyclable.
Quite recyclable.
Quite
That makes
redundant.
no sense, Danny. There you go. There you go. Okay, yeah, QR codes, we don't like them. Get rid of them. All right, so that is it. That's all we have for American Psycho. If you've seen American Psycho, which I hope you have, reach out to us on social media. Tell us what you thought of the movie. Is this all in Patrick Bateman's head, or did he really commit these murders? We want to know what you think. Find us on social media.
American Psycho, and it's in your head.
Ooh, what a twist! What a twist! Find us on social media.
This is a twist.
Nice. Find us on social media at How I Met Your Monster, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, all of those. Where can our listeners find you guys on social media?
I am on Instagram at Wolf Mother Casey.
Danny's like, oh my God, I can't do this again.
I'm just going to go. We've already talked about this. Got married, changed my name, but kept my name, changed it, but kept it. So I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to go back to my OG in terms of how I tell you how to find me, because if you type it in, you're going to find me. So I'm going to say perfect. You can find me at Danny Salem, spelled DANNYSALEMME. That's 2 M's like the candy, melt in your butt, not in your hands.
Awesome. And then if you find a Miller on the end of that, it's the same guy.
It's also me.
Awesome. And you can find me on social media at Zach Winsick. Make sure to join us next episode for our third feature in our Silver Screen Slashers triple feature, where we will be watching Peeping Tom.
A looking Thomas.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whatever she just said.
Every time I type in Peeping Tom in Google, I always leave out the second P and I write Peeing Tom, and I never press search. So I don't see what the results are, because I always catch myself first. I type in Peeing Tom and I'm like, Peeping Tom. So now I kind of want to Google.
Now you want to. Now we have to find out what. Yeah, we need to see what Peeing Tom gives us.
I might open something up about myself that I have yet to discover. So we'll see.
That's right. Ooh, that's exciting, Danny. You should do it.
Yeah. Do I have a pee kink? I don't know yet.
We'll find out. But all right, make sure to join us for that on our next episode. And until then, thank you all for listening. Now go meet some monsters.